And as a result of that, as you can see, these type of regulated institution trusted Canton, we have over $6 trillion of assets already on chain. You will see more and more. A lot of people ask me, why don't you see this on rwa.xyz? What we're doing is we're asking some of our clients to actually start exposing the numbers. But again, that's one of the challenges with privacy. You can't just see everything that is happening on chain.
Okay, so ever since I started researching Canton, and mind you, again, none of this is financial advice because we are going to put some numbers into the coin perspective today, and we're just going to take a look at the potential that Canton has based off of numbers that are in documents that I'm going to read. So it's not my personal opinion, and I'm not shilling it. I'm not saying that this is going to happen. I just want to go off of pretty much what people in interviews, i.e., the co-founders of Canton, are saying the potential demand for Canton Network could be. So that's what I'm going to go off of today, not my own personal opinion. All right. But I want to really thoroughly break down for you guys this idea of, well, if Canton's been doing this over the past consecutive couple of years, think about it. We've been speculating that. So, okay, let me put it this way. Over the past, let's just say 3 years, we've seen headlines, DTCC. It's like all these large institutions are using a blockchain, right? Well, what blockchain has that been over the past couple of years? Well, now, come to light, it's been Canton, guys and gals. Every single time that the DTCC was in a test, every single time that all these large institutions were testing on some blockchain, but they weren't saying which one it was Canton. And so that leads me to this question where if we've been speculating, for example, it's just, and I'm not bashing Ripple. I know I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this in the comments and blah, 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 blah when I upload this, but like this post right here really made me question things because of how many times, like in the past, have we speculated, like when a DTCC made an announcement about testing something in tokenization or in collateral or whatever on a blockchain, everybody was like, oh, it's Ripple, it's XRP, this, and that. When in reality, it actually wasn't. It was always Canton. And I want to show that today. I want to really dive into some key vocabulary and actually show you guys how it was for a fact Canton. So Cointelegraph, interestingly enough, just the other day put this out, December 22nd, 2025. And again, I hold XRP. I will never sell my XRP. I personally think that XRP's value is going to be very high in the future. But this type of stuff just makes me really question some of the research that I've done over the past consecutive couple of years. I have no choice but to question my reality when reality surfaces. And for the first time, reality is starting to surface with all this new information that's coming out. So hypothesis, Cointelegraph put this out. Canton Network is what Ripple always wanted to be. And what really got me digging into these documents was when this gentleman here, Yuval Ruse, digital asset co-founder and co-founder of Canton Network, said this at the ASC 2025 summit that took place. Only has 169 views, and it's here when he said there's already $6 trillion flowing through the Canton network. Take a second and listen.
And although it's a very exciting technology, my co-founder actually is one of the creators of zero knowledge proof. It's not compliant with regulations. And therefore, I think that that's an extremely important thing to understand the difference if you are a regulated financial institution. And as a result of that, as you can see, these type of regulated institution trusted Canton, we have over $6 trillion of assets already on chain. You will see more and more. A lot of people ask me, why don't you see this on rwa.xyz? What we're doing is we're asking some of our clients to actually start exposing the numbers. But again, that's one of the challenges with privacy. You can't just see everything that is happening on chain.
I had to revisit that because I was like $6 trillion at the same time. Like Cointelegraph put this post out, and then I'm like, let me dive a little bit deeper into the fundamentals and read these documents. And when I did, I'm so happy that I did because it gives you so much mental clarity about what's really been happening and what blockchain they have actually been using, not the speculative bullcrap that we've all been creating in our heads over the past couple of years, thinking that they're using these other networks and these other chains when in reality they're not. And they haven't. And they've been using the Canton network. So I just want to show you guys, and I want to take you back to this from the BIS. So this was back from November 23rd, 2023. And it's the Future of Money System from Vision to Reality keynote speech that took place from Augustin Carson, the general manager of the BIS at the time. I don't know if he's still the active BIS general manager, but nonetheless, he was at the time. And there was two key vocabulary words that stood out to me that I remembered when this report broke from the BIS general manager. And at the time, I was even in the speculative crowd that speculated that this unified ledger that they were talking about was the XRPL.
Core idea behind our approach is to have a financial system that relies on the exchange of tokens in the context of unified ledgers. Intermediaries would facilitate the trade, the onboarding, the offboarding, and the tokenization of assets. The management of tokens would be done by different intermediaries and ledger owners that will be a part of the system. Key procedures will be the authentication of the parties who is trading, the verification of ownership, who has what, and the off and on ramps, as they are key for the integration of the system to the rest of the economy. In short, tokens and unified ledgers based on programmable platforms enable a shift in how financial transactions would be conducted.
And it's not, guys and gals, it's not. So all the people who made content speculating that when the BIS announced this unified ledger and network of networks was the XRPL, that is the farthest thing from the truth. So I had to even come to terms with myself and correct my previous thesis, because now that has been proven that this unified ledger, it says right here, the best way to knit transactions and operations among markets and financial services is to bring them onto shared programmable platforms. This is what we have labeled a unified ledger. A unified ledger would be a network of networks that would allow various components of the financial system to work seamlessly together. In particular, it would have the potential to combine the monetary system, central bank money, and commercial bank money with other assets, making possible the instantaneous payment, clearing, and settlement of any transactions. So I want you guys to pay attention to the key vocabulary words, unified ledger and network of networks. And remember the dates. This is from November 2023. So if we come over to the Canton fundamentals, let's dive into this first document here. Canton, connected capital markets take flight. Okay, and I got my highlighter tool. This is chat PDF. So let's jump in. It says here, the Canton network is a public permission blockchain network that includes a decentralized synchronization service called the Global Synchronizer, designed to respect privacy and institutional sovereignty. In the pilot, independent Canton blockchains use this service to interoperate and execute atomic transactions while ensuring participants remained in complete control of their permissions, exposures, and interactions. The goal was to preserve the stability of trusted regulated processes while offering the transformative power to connect. As you read through the findings in this report, you will discover how this unique approach can deliver on the promise of a network of networks that regulated financial institutions can finally say yes to. The Canton network, the exceptional power of connection. So there's that key vocabulary of the network of networks, right? It gets crazier. Okay, mind you, again, dates are important. So the BIS announced in November 2023 that there's going to be this unified ledger that is going to be the network of networks. Okay, check this out. So the executive summary, and remind you, my thought process is, well, starting back in 2023, when the DTCC and all these large institutions started making all these announcements, they were integrating a blockchain into their backend infrastructure as in a pilot production phase. We were all speculating what blockchain that was, but now it's very transparent that that was Canton. So it says here, the Canton network pilot took place over a 6-week period in November, mind you, to December 2023. At the same time that the BIS mentioned what? The network of networks, right? And all 155 people from 45 institutions, exchanges, asset management firms, and capital markets technology providers came together to collaborate with their peers, share insights about network considerations, and participate in a range of simulated transactions demonstrating the connectivity potential of Canton Network for the capital markets industry. In the most comprehensive blockchain pilot for tokenized real-world assets, Firms from every region across the spectrum of capital markets value chain came together to explore opportunities presented by a new digital infrastructure for capital markets. The pilot set to demonstrate that an ecosystem of permission blockchain applications can seamlessly interoperate while maintaining control required in a regulated financial market, a balancing act that has so far provided elusive with the public and private blockchains available to financial institutions today. So it's literally saying here that all the other private blockchains, okay, have not been able to do this, and that the only one so far that has been able to do this is Canton. Institutions with blockchain applications in production include BNY Mellon. People that speculate. I mean, it is a Ripple partner. Don't mind, it is a Ripple partner, BNY Mellon, but who did they choose? Canton Network, y'all. Broadridge, DRW, Equilend, Goldman Sachs, Oliver Wyman, Paxos, providing market expertise for the working group throughout the program. Additional pilot participants included Aberdeen, Bay Markets, BNB Paribas, Bach Financial, SIBO Global Markets, Commerce Bank, the DTCC, General Investments, Harvest Fund Management, IEX, Nomura, Northern Trust, PRM, Standard Charter, another major Ripple participant there, but they're choosing Canton here. State Street, Visa, Wellington Management, with Deloitte acting as the observer and Microsoft as the supporting partner. As this continues, it says down here, the Canton Network pilot demonstrated this new way forward, unlocking the full potential of blockchain tech for global capital markets by enabling both the interoperability so critical to driving liquidity for new digital assets and the independent control and privacy that organizations need when composing transactions across the ecosystem. As we deliver on our goal of a single source of truth for the industry, the Canton Network showcased our platform could play within the wider capital markets ecosystem to unlock settlement efficiencies and greater collateral mobility. The key to this is Canton's ability to deliver both the unified ledger, but also the granular controls that we need as an app operator and the privacy demand for our customers. Do you all see that key vocabulary word right there? Canton delivered the unified ledger,
as they are key for the integration of the system to the rest of the economy. In short, tokens and unified ledgers based on programmable platforms enable a shift in how financial transactions would be conducted.
And what was the BIS talking about? A unified ledger and network of networks back in 2023 when all of this happened. Okay. As we continue, it says down here, remember, Canton uses what? Synchronized finance, which is a network of networks with true transaction level interoperability. So we look at the intergraph. What does Canton hold? A network of networks, of sovereign networks, atomic transactions across permission chains, granular privacy, no need to trust shared service providers, high asset mobility and utility, digital asset liquidity, unlocking new assets and data, enable greater transfer of assets, utility, and optimized capital flows in real time, reconciliation free from the network, risk-free atomic settlement, native that's a big one, atomicity to reduce trade breaks, guaranteed consistency across chains, low attack surface, high resilience connectivity. If we continue to scroll down here, look at when it says, in December 2023, this is when all this took place, 155 participants from all these major financial institutions, the Canton Network pilot conceived to provide evidence for the first time. This is what blew my mind, okay? Because again, what is my hypothesis? That we were all speculating. Remember, all these announcements back in the years where everybody was creating content saying, oh, they're choosing this network or that network. Well, now it's telling you here that Canton was the one for the first time. Canton Network pilot was to provide evidence that for the first time, true automatic smart contract composition is possible between independent blockchains without sacrificing the controls demanded by regulated financial markets. What? So if they're doing it for the first time and we're seeing who they're partnering with, and you see in the freaking document here, they're talking about the network of networks and how Canton is the unified ledger, all right? To me, you can't make that stuff up. So that part of this document was very interesting. Now, it doesn't stop there, okay? It does not stop there. So I went back and I was like, okay, there's a lot of Ripple partners that chose Canton, and I wonder why that is. If they've already chosen Ripple, according to all the content that we've pretty much been making over the past years. Well, look at this. August 12th, 2025. Digital Asset and Industry Working Group complete groundbreaking on-chain US Treasury financing on the Canton network. And I was like, huh, okay. Digital Asset, in collaboration with the consortium of leading financial institutions, today announced the successful completion of groundbreaking transactions on the Canton network, marking the first, again, that is now the second time Fundamental has said it's the first time enabling real-time, fully on-chain financing of US Treasuries against USDC. The transaction included, and it talks about all these, right, participants, but look down here, it says, members of the working group focused on the advanced chain initiatives included Bank of America, Circle, Citadel Securities, Cumberland, Digital Asset, the Depository Trust Corporation, Hidden Road, right? Well, look at when this happened, y'all. August 12th, 2025. Guys, when did Ripple acquire Hidden Road? Months before that, April. So Ripple had already acquired Hidden Road when this took place, and Hidden Road is doing what? They're literally processing treasury transactions on the freaking Canton network, not XRPL. Are y'all seeing this? I'm not tripping. It's right here. So
Hey, can I say something real
yeah,
quick to
yeah,
remind us
absolutely, absolutely.
what David Schwartz said on stage? He
Say it.
said Ripple's biggest thorn in their side is that they can't use the XRPL. And I've played that a million times. I can find it right now and I can play it in just a moment if you'd like.
I think it's going to be very significant. You know, a thorn in my side and a thorn in the side of Ripple for a long time has been the fact that we can't use the XRP Ledger DEX for our own payments products. Like this just, I want to rip my hair out. So like it's obvious that we would do that, and it's frustrating that endlessly frustrating that we can't. And the primary obstacle is that Ripple is a regulated institution,
Right.
and if our trade like passes through a terrorist or somebody who's sanctioned by the United States, it doesn't matter whether we knew or could have known, or basically if there's a chance that that can happen, we just can't do it.
Right.
And so we have not been able to use the DEX. And it's just, oh, it just, oh, it just,
But we can't forget those words that he said. Those are not my words. Those are his
And
words.
like, dude, I'm telling you, like, I'm trying my hardest. I don't want people to be like, oh, you know, why are you switching up? Why you're not talking about X? No, I'm still bullish on XRP. I haven't, my perspective on XRP has not changed, but I'm not going to sit here and deny the facts. And the facts are, is that none of the fundamentals that I've just shown you say that they're using the XRPL. None of them. Not even Hidden Road is using the XRPL to literally digitize US treasuries. Like they're using Canton. You know, this is just crazy to me. And so, you know, that led me into a little bit more detail into just looking at the documents, because I was like, okay, we can't just be like, all right, one fundamental piece from Canton is not a coincidence. So I needed to find further evidence. So I went over to digitalasset.com. Digital Asset, the people that built Canton Network, and I went through their documents. Y'all, you cannot make this up. It says right here in the very first freaking network overview of Canton. Mind you, again, what the BIS said, okay, November 2023. And when did this whole entire pilot with all these large financial institutions that successfully and for the first time ever proved that this was possible take place? From November to December 2023. So timing is important. Right on their documents, it says the technology stack. The Canton network is designed as a network of networks where each participating institution maintains its own subledger while connecting with others via a shared synchronized layer. The Global Synchronized Foundation, an independent nonprofit body under the Linux Foundation, governs the Global Synchronizer. Participants. Canton Network was launched in May 2023 by a group of major institutions and continues to be backed by the world's largest financial crypto institutions alike. Participants include Goldman Sachs, HSBC, BNP Paribas, market infrastructure providers like the DTCC, Deutsche Börse, and crypto trading firms like DRW and QCP. Okay? So there, to me, was the second confluence of they're using the same vocabulary. That makes this a non-coincidental. This is not coincidental. The unified ledger and the network of networks that the BIS was telling everybody about back in 2023, because they don't say the Canton network in this piece. The BIS general manager back in 2023 didn't come out and say that they were using the Canton network, right? But everybody back in 2023, when the BIS said this, guarantee you could go back and find speculation that when the BIS general manager said this, XRP enthusiasts were saying that they were talking about the XRPL, but they were not. They were talking about Canton, right? So this to me was just crazy finding this vocabulary correlation here. Now, going a little bit more into detail on the coin itself. Okay, this is going to be a little bit of a lengthy read. Okay, but stick with me because what is said in this document here that was shared, it was either by Osmar Break Free, Canton Coin, a responsible approach to digital tokens. Excuse me, gives you a very in-depth perspective on what needs to happen in order for a Canton Coin to scale, what the demand behind Canton Coin would actually be, and what will actually create the price to rise, what would create the price to fall. That's why this report is important. Now it's 9 pages, but they're thick paragraphs. So get through it with me. And then that's going to lead me over here to what Canton Network posted 9 hours ago, because in this little tiny clip, I'll play it first to get you guys a little bit of dopamine fix before we read this long ass document. He specifically talks about the demand for the Canton Network is about the size of the current treasury market. Okay. And when we read this document and it talks about what would actually create demand for the Canton coin, and the Canton co-founder is saying that the current demand right now for the Canton network is the current size of the treasury market. And you remember what you've all said at the beginning of this, $6 trillion is already flowing through the Canton network. And I show you guys the freaking annual demand number for the treasury market, and I lowball that for you all. It's going to freaking blow your mind. Okay. So again, this is not my information. I'm just showing you guys what's recently been shared. All right.
What's unique about what we've done with TradeWeb and the DTC and all the other participants in this project is to have the real digital treasury on chain. That's the true legally binding registered asset. It's not some synthetic wrapped version or some indirection or some claim on it. It's the real thing. And so the scale of demand for that is at least whatever the scale for demand of treasuries is today. And then if you add on top of that, the utility profile, being able to move it 24/7 and hold it in new arrangements and incorporate it into your workflows on a very cost efficient sense, I think that the demand for that is significantly higher than we've ever seen for treasuries before.
So let's read this. This is going to take me a lot of water. To enhance interoperability on the Canton network, Digital Asset has created the technology for an optional decentralized synchronizer for the Canton network that includes a native utility token to pay synchronizer traffic fees that can be minted by participants that provide infrastructure or applications for the synchronizer. That's important. This whole ideology that this network and the demand for the coin will only grow if successful utility applications are built on it. The first instance of this decentralized synchronizer technology is being deployed by leading market participants and is called the Global Synchronizer, and its utility token called the Canton coin. The Global Synchronizer is being deployed by market participants only after Digital Asset has spent 10 years developing the underlying DOML and Canton technologies. So everybody that might come onto Canton now needs to understand that they've actually been building, like Neff said at the beginning of this call, for years behind the scenes before they actually launched their coin, which to me just shows that they were here in this space building for the long term and not for this short, quick fix of speculative hype. And proving that the viability of these technologies through an in-production use case that processes trillions of dollars in value, and only after almost a year of extensive testing by market participants anchoring it. The Global Synchronizer is not controlled by Digital Asset or by any of the market participants anchoring the Global Synchronizer. Moving forward, I'm just going to start calling this the GS. The GS is decentrally operated and governed by the market participants anchoring it. Each market participant anchoring it independently operates an instance of the Global Synchronizer software, and its consensus mechanism establishes an official output. When at least 2/3 of these participants reach the same result, governance will be coordinated through a new independent unit entity under the Linux Foundation called the Global Synchronizing Foundation. Digital Asset has made the synchronizer and token technologies available open source through the Hyperledger Foundation under Splice Labs. Unlike other digital tokens, Canton coin is not being sold in any initial coin offering, and Canton coin is not issued by Digital Asset or by any market participant anchoring the global synchronizer. Instead, participants operate nodes connected to each of the global synchronizers and will be able to mint Canton coin in exchange for providing either infrastructure or applications for the global synchronizer. Canton coin is designed so that its value will increase only if third parties develop and operate useful applications for the global synchronizer. Without these third-party applications, Canton coin will not have any value no matter the efforts of Digital Asset. That is extremely important because in the future, if we don't see these institutions build out useful applications on the global synchronizer, then the demand for the coin will not flourish. And they're making that very transparent, which I personally like, right? We are 15 years from when Bitcoin was first introduced, a new paradigm for digital value transfer. Unfortunately, in that span of time, we have seen very few meaningful uses of digital, i.e. native tokens. Instead, false promises of technological revolutions have jaded many observers and rightly drawn the scrutiny of regulators and policymakers. In the rush to push out digital tokens, it seems that many projects forgot two fundamental prerequisites for digital tokens to provide real value: technological readiness and the ability to solve real problems. So right here, they're pretty much calling out all the tokens, right? Instead, we have been given digital tokens that rely on immature technological foundations and that are unmoored from real-world use cases. Rather than provide real-world utility, they have simply served as regulatorial arbitrage capital-raising vehicles. Unsurprisingly, these tokens have, as a result, been subject to rampant speculation and in many cases served as vehicles for fraud. Token-first technology and use case later has at best been an ineffective strategy for creating real-world value, and at worst, allowed bad actors to replay some of the most egregious episodes from financial history. Egregious episodes from financial history. Use cases need to come first, and for better or worse, the potential use case for natively digital value transfer are plenty. The financial system is saddled with inefficiencies. Information remains siloed, both among and within institutions, resulting in data that remains unsynchronized across institutions. And as a result, transaction settlement remains dependent, costly, and slow in reconciliation among participants. And though assets are now recorded on electronic ledgers, they remain a static ledger entry, and manual processes are required to issue assets and settle transactions. Only by demonstrating real potential to tackle these challenges can digital value transfer and its enabling technology blockchain have any longevity. The right blockchain network can eliminate these myriad inefficiencies, resulting in tremendous cost savings and reduced risks. By enabling data to be synchronized across participants and automating critical workflows and within these blockchain networks, when the technology is mature and the use cases have been proven out, digital tokens can provide real utility by enabling seamless value transfer and serving as a built-in mechanism to incentivize parties to operate applications and infrastructure. So I like that because that coexists with what could create the demand for CC or Canton coin. At Digital Asset, we recognize from the outset the importance of developing our technology and proving its use case first. Digital Asset was founded in 2014, and our mission is to power connections across markets. Over the past 10 years, we have diligently and methodically worked to develop our technology. Our privacy-focused smart contract platform, DOML, which I went over in a previous video breakdown, and blockchain protocol, Canton, to a mature state. DOML enables the development of applications that model transactions in the context of rights and obligations, making it well suited for applications that implement financial workflows, while other blockchain application frameworks inherit the privacy properties of their underlying blockchain. If blockchain requires transparency for its integrity, then all data that runs through an application on that blockchain will be freely available to anyone who can connect to it. With DOML applications, integrity does not depend upon transparency, and a developer can specify privacy rules for each unique piece of data that is handled in that application. Canton is a blockchain tech that takes a unique approach to distributed ledger technology. Its name is a reference to Switzerland's cantonal governance structure. Most blockchains today, including Bitcoin and Ethereum, replicate the entire ledger across all parties in a network. Canton takes a different approach. With Canton, the entire ledger for a network of applications is not replicated across parties on the network and thus not publicly available. So for anybody that's like, oh, well, it's just got all this, it's not public, $6 trillion, where's it at? Well, it was created to not allow you to see that, okay? And it tells you that in their documents. Instead, each user of DOML application maintains a ledger of only the data it is permissioned to see by the DOML application. The Canton protocol ensures that this data is valid and current. As a result, everyone works from a unified ledger, there it is right there, without being in possession of the entire ledger. Instead, each user is only in possession of their portion of the ledger. This is incredibly useful in financial workflows, where a unified ledger can be eliminate costly reconciliation, but where user application data nonetheless needs to be private. Canton enables both synchronization of data and transactions across independently operated applications and synchronizers while implementing its unique privacy and control capabilities, which if you go and you read, so this telling you what Canton does, if you go and you read the 2023 announcement from Augustin Carson's general manager of what this unified ledger will allow, it is word for word the exact use case that Canton solves, right? Digital Asset has been unwaveringly focused on using these technologies to solve real problems. DOML and Canton are being used today in production systems at some of the world's leading financial institutions, enabling these institutions to reduce the issuance time of securities from days to seconds, reduce settlement risk, and increase efficiency. As just one example, DOML and Canton are being used to help process over $1.5 trillion of repo transactions per month, reducing millions in annual operating costs typically carried by market participants. With our technology mature and with a demonstrated ability to solve real use cases, it was time to take the next step in our mission of powering connections across markets. On May 9th, 2023, 30 institutions came together to announce the Canton Network. The Canton Network, a public permission blockchain network, is simply the universe of parties running DOML applications that can connect to each other through the Canton blockchain protocol. Market participants connected through the Canton blockchain protocol have the same control over key functionality they have today, allowing for strong privacy and permissioning while benefiting from the real-time data synchronization and elimination of silos that blockchain allows. It is important to emphasize that the Canton network is simply the universe of parties running DOML applications that are connected to each other through the Canton blockchain protocol. The Canton network is not a single monolithic network, but rather a network of networks anchored by a third-party application. So there it is again, referring to the network of networks that Canton is. The figure below illustrates the Canton network application-centric interconnected network of networks architecture. If we come down here, it talks about splice. I'm not going to get into all that. I want to find where it starts to talk about Canton coin to save time because this is just nuts. You definitely should go read the mint and burn feature of the Canton coin. I'll save time. I won't read that. You guys can go and check this out. But this also talks about the demand incentives for the coin itself. Coming down here, okay. This is important. The use of Canton's network global synchronizer will always be optional. Parties will retain the ability to connect and transact directly with each other by setting up their own private synchronizer and may choose to do so as needed for regulatory or other reasons. And DOML smart contracts can be used to form a multi-synchronizer workflow, allowing participants to utilize the most appropriate synchronizer for different legs of a transaction. Moreover, parties may choose to set up their own decentralized synchronizer, utilizing the Splice open source codebase maintained by Hyperledger Labs. So, the global synchronizer will include the first deployment of Emulet, which will be called the Canton coin. Canton coin is different from other digital tokens in a few key takeaways. So this is important. First and foremost, Canton coin is not being sold in any sort of initial coin offering. Instead, the primary way to obtain Canton coin is by providing utility to the global synchronizer system. That's probably why it's not sold on many exchanges, right? This can be done in one of three ways. Operating a super validator, deploying a DOML application that connects to and uses the global synchronizer, i.e. each in-application provider, or operating a node that enables others to connect to the global synchronizer. Now, why this is so important to me, where it talks about operating a node, is because of what Sandy Cole has said in previous video breakdowns, that every financial institution and every regulator in the future if they want to utilize this technology, will need to run a node. Not if they want to or not, they will need to. And think about it. If one financial institution chooses to use the Canton network and is performing and doing things much faster and better than the other financial institution, then what's going to happen? They're most likely going to choose to use the Canton network as well, right? So just keep that in mind. These parties will be able to mint Canton coin through the global synchronizer minting protocol and implementation of the emulate minting protocol described above by performing their respective functions. Second, unlike most digital tokens, which were launched in the anticipation of and as a mechanism to foster development of a blockchain protocol and network infrastructure, digital asset has taken the opposite approach. We have already developed our blockchain protocol and network infrastructure. As discussed above, the foundational technologies for the Canton network, DAML and Canton, have been in development by digital asset since 2014. And these technologies are already deployed today by some of the world's largest and leading financial institutions. There is no question as to whether they are functioning and useful in the real world, because they are. The core technology infrastructure for the global synchronizer has also already been developed and is in such a sufficiently technologically mature state today that if digital asset were to stop making contributions to its code base, the global synchronizer would still function. I love this because of how many people would be like, oh, it's centralized. It's centralized. No, it's telling you right here that if digital asset went away, so like let's say, for example, we see an announcement on Twitter that digital asset is disbanding and they're moving to other things and da 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 da. Well, we know that the global synchronizer would still function today. That's important. Notably, and as a testament to the global synchronizer technological readiness, the testnet version of the global synchronizer was made available in August 2023 and was used in late 2023 to support an unprecedented pilot program where 45 financial market participants came together to participate in 350 cross-application transactions, demonstrating the connectivity potential of the Canton network for the capital markets industry. The pilot demonstrated how multiple Canton instances can transactionally interoperate via the global synchronizer and execute cross-chain transactions without placing trust in a central operator, shared service provider, or competitor to exchange value between systems. So literally a global bridge, okay? That's what this is explaining. The global synchronizer is operationally and structurally independent from digital asset. Third, and in addition to being sufficiently technologically mature, the global synchronizer will also be both operational and structurally independent from digital asset. Operationally, the GS will not operate by digital asset. Instead, as noted above, each super validator will independently operate an instance of the global synchronizer software, and its actions will be mediated through the global synchronizer consensus protocol. To ensure that each super validator can carry its burden of operating its instance of the global synchronizer software, each super validator including digital asset, has conducted extensive practice in the various aspects of operating necessary software testnets was made available in August 2023, with the participants becoming significantly more intense in early 2024. Structurally, the global synchronizer will not be governed by digital asset, and any decision impacting the global synchronizer will instead require the approval of at least 2/3 of the super validators. This ensures that neither digital asset nor any other super validator can unilaterally make or block any decision of the super validators. Okay, let's see. Final. Though certain of the software necessary to operate the super validator, this is the part I want to say. Okay, fourth and final. This is important. Fourth and final. Canton Coin implements emulates burn and mint equilibrium model, disincentivizing price speculation and instead incentivizing the development of useful applications for the global synchronizer. This is where it gets juicy. Okay. Specifically, as discussed above, if demand for the network is low, fewer tokens will be burned than minted, resulting in an increased token supply and downward pressure on the price. The cheaper token will encourage network use and reassert upward pressure on the price, stabilizing it at value reflective to its utility. So this is important because people will be like, oh, downwards price on Canton is bad. Oh my gosh. Well, it's telling you right here, actually, that would be good because it would reassert. It says right here, cheaper token will encourage network use and reassert upward price pressure on the price, stabilizing its value reflective of utility. Conversely, if demand for the network is high, more tokens will be burned than minted, resulting in decreased token supply and upward price pressure. If the market price does not match the demand for the network, more tokens will be minted than burned, and this inflation of supply should put downward pressure on the price, stabilizing it at a value reflective to its utility. The upshot of this economic structure is twofold. First, the price of Canton coin should be reflective of the true value of the network over time, because any speculative price swings will be dampened by the fluctuations in the number of Canton coins that need to be burned to pay fees. And second, this model disincentivizes holding Canton coins purely for speculative reasons, because the supply of Canton coins will continually increase over time unless Canton coins are removed from circulation via burning to pay fees. The constantly increasing supply of Canton coins will exert downward pressure on its price. Moreover, the Canton coin implementation of the amulet model weights the minting distribution over the first 10 years of the global synchronizer operation equally between application providers on the one hand and super validators and validators on the other hand. Taken together under this economic structure, Canton coin will only be as valuable as the applications developed and operated by the application providers for the global synchronizer. Without these applications, Canton coin will not have any value no matter what the efforts are of digital asset or any other super validator. Paul's right there. Now, I know that that was a lot to process, and it's like, oh my gosh, well, is this going to have any value? That is obviously, of course, a speculative bet. And it is telling you right off the bat that Canton coin is not for speculative purposes. It is to solve real world value and real world use cases. What we do know is that it was chosen. What we do know is that it is being utilized. What we don't know is will it continue to be utilized. That is where you are going to have to make a speculative bet in your portfolio. I'm willing to bet with the amount of risk that I'm willing to take that it is. Listen to what this guy says. Okay, so again, remember, we now know, and I've read thoroughly through the documents, regardless if you understand the mechanics of what I just read or not, you understand the basic principle that in order for this coin to rise, useful applications and utility need to be built on the network. Well, listen to what this guy says the current demand for the Canton network actually is. Okay, so this is the Canton co-founder. All right, it says the biggest unlock for US treasuries is making them truly on chain. Listen to what he says here. The current demand for Canton is.
What's unique about what we've done with TradeWeb and the DTC and all the other participants in this project is to have the real digital treasury on chain. That's the true legally binding registered asset. It's not some synthetic wrapped version or some indirection or some claim on it. It's the real thing. And so the scale of demand for that is at least whatever the scale for demand of treasuries is today. And then if you add on top of that the utility profile, being able to move it 24/7 and hold it in new arrangements and incorporate it into your workflows on a very cost efficient sense, I think that the demand for that is significantly higher than we've ever seen for treasuries before.
So he just said that the demand for the Canton network, excuse me, I don't know why my screen stopped sharing. The demand for the Canton network is the current size of
What's
the
unique about
treasury
what
market. Okay. The demand for this use case that Canton provides is the current size of the treasury market. If we come over here, mind you, again, we know that the DTCC that processes quadrillions chose Canton. We now know that the unified ledger that the BIS was talking about over the past 2.5 years was Canton. All these institutions are already using and choosing Canton to build applications on it. Looking at right now, according to just ChatGPT and a simple search, according to the Brookings Institute, the U.S. Treasury market averages around $900 to $1.5 trillion in transactions daily. That would make the annual demand right now for the Treasury market at about $225 trillion. Okay? So if this guy is saying that the current demand for the Canton network is the current size of the Treasury market, and we were to take this again, let's just lowball it. I always like to lowball stuff because that's a huge stretch. Assuming that $225 trillion is going to flow through one network is, in my personal opinion, unrealistic. But let's just throw a small number, $500 billion, which is not even $1 trillion in value. Mind you, you already heard Yuval say $6 trillion is flowing through Canton already. So this is a lowball of the already lowballed 6 trillion compared to the 225 trillion. $500 billion market cap of Canton would put this bad boy at $13. Okay? That's just 500 billion. That's a lowball of a lowball of a lowball, y'all. Okay? So if I were to go in there and do some bullish moonboy shit and just put this at the $6 trillion that Yuval mentioned, okay? And again, we're talking about the future, 5 to 10 years out. I'm not saying that this is going to happen overnight because the document even says that this is not going to happen overnight. It says that all of this is going to take place over time. But a $6 trillion market cap would put this bad boy at $1.64. And if we were to go a far stretch, we could even lowball this even further and just do 60 trillion. Because again, I'm taking it off of what this gentleman says that the current demand for the Canton network is the current size of the treasury market, which is 225 trillion annually. So 60 trillion would put this bad boy at $1,645 per coin. Now, again, all of that is very speculative, which is why I lowballed that first number to begin with. Okay. Even just looking at this to lowball the lowball that I gave you, let's go with what do we do? 500 billion. Let's do $100 billion market cap, which is the current market cap of XRP, right? It's in the range of what? 100 billion and some change market cap. Okay. So let's just do 100 billion, which we now know all the speculative bullcrap that surfaced about the unified ledger was really the Canton network. So was $100 billion market cap really unreasonable? In my personal opinion, no. And that would still put Canton at $2.74, which is nuts compared to where it's trading at now and where it's probably going to trade at in the coming weeks ahead if the market sentiment deteriorates further and we see lower prices, right? So I had one more document that I wanted to cover for you guys on Canton before I let D'Angelo go. It's this one right here. Now, this document is very interesting. It's from Keiko Research. And there is a couple of different highlights, but definitely go through and read this one. One of the key things that I like about this is that down here it talks about how there's a possibility that the market goes lower. It also talks about the current demand for the technology that Canton provides. And it talks about the treasury markets and whatnot and the value proposition here. And look at the numbers it's giving, $300 billion a day. So the numbers that I threw are not unrealistic. They're just not a reality right now on a blockchain yet. Until regulatory clarity comes into fruition, I don't see any of these numbers happening, but you can see they're talking about this right here, right? But coming down here, where it gets interesting is in this document to keep it realistic for you guys, because I think that this is something, if you are going to invest in this coin, you need to be very mindful of. Okay, it says right here, how prices will handle thin markets. Macro shocks have persisted this year, primarily driven by the U.S. administration's approach to tariffs and trade talks, which we know are going to probably escalate with the rhetoric and the decision between Trump and Congress in the coming weeks ahead. And it says this rhetoric is likely to persist as trade negotiations can take years to finalize. Meanwhile, inflation is lingering and could hamper prices, especially as liquidity is only building. So be mindful of that just because I'm bullish long-term on Canton does not mean that the downside for Canton, just like any other coin that we hold, is not possible moving forward. This market is still heavily drawn out and fluctuated by risk on, risk off sentiment. And so if we do see a risk off backdrop, even after all the bullish shit that I just showed you on Canton, that does not negate Canton's price from further downside movements. Doing this research, hopefully for you guys, reading these documents gives you guys a better understanding. Make sure that if you guys are going to invest in projects that we talk about and cover and do research on, you are making your own risk-based assessment and judgment, understanding that all of this research could be what these banks and institutions are piloting and using right now. And then in 10 years from now, they could turn on the lights and completely not use any of these things, right? So understand that. I just thought that I'd give you guys that breakdown. The key vocabulary was very interesting to me. This was 100% proof that all of the unrealistic hype that people were giving on the unified ledger and network of networks being the XRPL back in the day in 2023 was false and incorrect. And it was actually the Canton network that they were using the entire time. That proof has now been in the pudding. What's to happen next? Nobody has a crystal ball or no, but I'm definitely going to be diversified in my portfolio holdings. And I'm willing to take bets on both XRP, XLM, Canton, and all these other mature digital assets that have regulatory backing and have built solid infrastructure with banks and financial institutions are going to be the ones that survive in the future, right? And Canton is definitely on my radar now moving forward. So hopefully that breakdown kind of gave you guys some due diligence, so you don't have to go through and read these documents yourselves, although I highly recommend that you do. Hopefully that takes a little bit of the discourse off the table for you guys. Anything, I'll leave the floor open if you guys have anything. Feedback, always welcomed. If not, then I'll let you guys go. But